Good afternoon, dear all. First of all, I would like to thank the American Musical Instrument Society for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. I'm really pleased to have the chance to present some of the results of ongoing research on the rabeca in Pernambuco. In 2019, I was asked by Jorge Ventura de Moraes, professor at the Federal University of the State of Pernambuco in Northeast Brazil, to become his advisor on issues of organology. Since then, we have been investigating the building methods of rabeca makers in Pernambuco, paying particular attention to the impact of social and cultural issues on building practices. The rabeca is a violin-shaped instrument widely distributed throughout Brazil. It is traditionally played at local folguedos. These are popular celebrations including dance, music, and theatrical representations. Other instruments such as pandeiros, guiros, and zabumbas play next to the rabeca, but it is this last instrument the one that leads the ensemble. Rabecas are traditionally built by the player himself. Players tend to be male with some rare exceptions. However, in recent years, other individuals not necessarily associated to the folguedos have begun building the instrument. Some of these builders play the instrument little. This situation has brought important changes in relation to the organology of the instrument. It is important to mention that as a result of its non-standardized nature, the rabeca from one builder can look significantly different to that of a builder living in a neighboring town. Differences can be found not only in the body of the instrument and in the quality of the sound, but also in the materials and the methods used to build it. It is for this reason that we have limited our research to the study of the instruments of the state of Pernambuco. One of the reasons behind the differences in visual appearance among instruments of different builders has to do with the model the builder uses to make his own instrument. At the early stages of their career, builders tend to copy instruments that they have seen on TV, photographs, or in the hands of older performers. Some builders use the violin as a model, but even in this case, the finished instrument may not resemble the original model closely. This is the case of the instruments of Airon Galindo, a builder whose instruments I would like to discuss today. Galindo lives in Caruaru, a city 120 kilometers west from Recife. Galindo builds an instrument that greatly differs from those of other builders, not only in terms of its appearance, but also in the materials he uses to build it. Galindo has chosen to use a type of wood that no other rabeca builder in Pernambuco employs. That is plywood, which is made from spruce, coming from discarded packaging boxes for household appliances. The city of Caruaru is a regional trade hub. For this reason, the wood is readily available for free at some places. Galindo has chosen to use this type of material for financial reasons. He considers that rabecas are expensive instruments beyond the means of many of those with an interest in learning how to play the instrument. Instruments can reach 700 reais, about 130 US dollars, but even more expensive instruments can cost 1,500 reais, almost 300 US dollars. But Galindo's instruments can be purchased for 350 reais, $17. So I'm going to briefly discuss some of the characteristics of one of Galindo's instruments. His rabeca has 4 strings tuned G, D, A, E, and these particular strings are from an instrument called bandolim, a Brazilian type of mandolin. This instrument is one of a batch of 13 instruments that he made in 2019 It is and was his last attempt at building a large amount of instruments simultaneously. This is because the experience was not a pleasant one. This might have been as a result of the fact that Galindo owns simple machinery such as jigsaw, knives, and a router. He has no financial resources to purchase sophisticated tools. For this reason, he's prompted to look for creative solutions to accomplish what he wants in a reasonable amount of time. Galindo begins the building process by designing the model, which he told us is inspired by the violin. Now, you will see in the following image the considerable differences between both instruments. You can see that the bouts are very, very different, and also the neck is shorter, although the body length is almost the same. Galindo has sold around 30 instruments. Sadly, he does not keep a record of them, at least not a systematic one. So we couldn't see how these instruments look like. However, you can see in the next image the clear differences between the 2019 and the 2020 instrument, which was still in the earliest building stages. The 2020 instrument is closer in its design to the violin. You can see that the bouts look similar to those on the violin, much more than on this instrument. Galindo told us that he always modifies something whenever he plans a new instrument. When asked why he does that, he answered, just for the sake of changing. The situation illustrates the importance of maintaining research on the rabeca as an activity continuing over time in order to keep a record of these changes. Once he has determined the main features of the new instrument, he prepares the wood. Plywood can be reduced to a specific thickness by removing some of the layers that make up the material. When he achieves a thickness of 4 millimeters, he begins cutting the top and back plates. The back plate is flat. The curved top plate is prepared by heating the material until it can easily bend. When the desired form is achieved, Galindo lets the plate cool down using the wind. The edges are cut using a simple saw, but when he had to cut several pieces, he used a jigsaw. The first step in the assembling process of the body consists in joining the back and top plates by means of 4 corner blocks placed here, 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 and here. But before this is done, he places the sound post in a previously defined place and glues it. Galindo took this step as he found it terribly difficult to insert the sound post after the body was sealed. He doesn't own a sound post setup, so he was attempting to do this using improvised tools. In the end, he is satisfied with the sound the instrument produces using his own arrangement. The glue Galindo uses is PVA, polyvinyl acetate, also known as white glue. In general, the types of glue used by Galindo will not harden as animal glue does, leading to acoustical issues that remain to be studied. However, white glue can be easily removed using water, something that facilitates repairs when those are required. After completing this step, Galindo prepares the ribs. He uses water to separate the wood layers of the plywood until he reaches the desired thickness using sandpaper. Sometimes during this process, the material for the rib softens to a degree that it can be easily curved. In this case, it is not necessary to heat the pieces to shape them in the form of the outline of the top and back plates. Here you can see that the rib runs along the edges of the plates, an important difference with the violin and also with the viola da gamba. The instrument was fitted with 4 ribs, upper, central, and lower boughs. The upper one was later cut at its middle point to allow for the fitting of the neck. The neck in this instrument evinces the creative resources of the builder. Galindo told us that it is difficult to find pieces of wood thick enough to make a neck from one piece. For this reason, he has to use 2. Using a router, he carves a space in each of them that, once the pieces are glued together, will constitute the peg box. After the glue has set, he carves them he carves the piece that will become the neck using a knife. In these images, you can clearly see the different types of wood that constitute the neck. The darker wood here, and also you can see a division here between the 2 sides of the scroll. Also, the cutting process has left some asymmetries which the builder has not removed. In any case, these do not interfere with the functionality of the instrument. You can see here that this surface is not even, but this is completely unimportant. There is something, however, that might considerably affect the performance of this instrument, and this is the particular shape of the back of the neck. When comparing the necks of some rabecas made by older builders from the state of Pernambuco, one can easily perceive that the thickness and curvature at the back of the neck built by Galindo here in image C might require a particular playing approach from the performer. We have not attempted yet study on the impact of the neck of this instrument on performance. This is something we are planning for the nearby future, when the conditions improve so that we can meet performers safely. Next in the building process is the merging of the neck with the mortise, a never easy procedure. In this particular case, and specifically in the case of the batch of 13 instruments I previously mentioned, Galindo encountered several problems that required radical solutions. Given the nature of the materials he uses and the speed at which he might have worked in order to reduce costs, he found it more difficult than usual to assemble the neck to the body. Given that each body and neck exhibited significant differences in terms of their finishing, as we have seen with the asymmetries visible in the scroll and peg box, each time Galindo attempted to place the neck, he found very specific difficulties. He told us that some of the instruments appeared to be askew. As a result of this, he began to use nails to keep the neck straight, a solution he had observed other builders using. The difficulties which he might have faced led him to declare that he would never build again so many instruments at the same time. The use of nails helps them to keep the structure aligned, but it also has an impact on the inner structure of the instrument. The bass bar on this instrument is made of a piece of wood that travels all the distance between the top and the bottom of the instrument. It has a rectangular profile along its length and follows the curvature of the top plate. Galindo told us that he placed the bass bar at the middle of the plate, since he considers this arrangement does not affect the sound qualities of the instrument. This might be true up to a certain extent. In the violin, the bass bar, apart from adding structural strength to the top plate, aids in the transmission of the lower frequencies from this plate to the rest of the body. The two lowest strings of the rabeca are almost never played. It might be for this reason that Galindo feels the position he has chosen for the bass bar does not affect the instrument's sound emission. But as a result of the position and length of the bass bar, the nail that gives support to the base of the neck goes through the bass bar. As in the case of the glued sound post, we are not yet sure how this arrangement might affect the overall acoustics of the instrument. This is something we will study at a later time. Now, let us finally discuss the tailpiece on this instrument. Galindo initially built the tailpiece using materials such as coconut, bamboo, and wood. But when he tested with metal, he became more than satisfied. Tailpiece is thus made from a galvanized metal piece, galvanized metal sheet. The length of the metal piece is such that it can be bent at its lower end. Galindo then drills a hole at the lower segment of the piece, and it is through this hole that the end button will pass and fasten the tailpiece to the button block inside the instrument. So there is no need for a tail gut as in the violin. Galindo told us that after having fitted one of his instruments with this type of tailpiece, the sound became twangy, nasal, and reminded him of that of the marimbao. His choice might then be connected with his fondness for this instrument. The marimbao is an instrument cherished by many in northeastern Brazil. It consists of a metal string attached to a piece of wood and two metallic cans at each side of the string serve both as nuts and resonance chambers. Let us briefly listen to this instrument. So, Galindo's regard for the sound of this instrument might have led him to choose an atypical material for the tailpiece. Let us finally talk briefly about the bow. This is made from bed slat wood, those pieces of wood that are under our mattresses. There are no movable parts in it, and instead of hair, the bow is fitted with nylon fishing line. This is an extended practice among rabeca builders. Rosin is used to increase the friction between this type of material and the metal string. However, performers need to rosin their bows frequently. For this reason, players have several bows at their disposal, ready to use during a performance. To conclude, the universe of the rabeca requires continuous exploration. Differences in socio-cultural background, skills, and resources can lead to the appearance of wonderful examples of the creative mind. Our efforts are concentrated on the documentation and analysis of the practices of these builders, since their practices tend to change over time, and if there are no apprentices, would be lost when the builder dies. We hope this effort will encourage other researchers to do the same in their own regions, so that we can keep a record of this important cultural tradition. Thank you very much.